Sorry, y'all. I froze again. Shalom to everybody in the chat. Shalom to you. Um, we're going to go over Donald Trump's interview that he had with NABJ. And, in my opinion, Trump didn't do so good. I don't know. I just thought he would have done better with this interview, but I don't know. You'll have to judge for yourself. I think that he came off pretty harsh. And number two, he was sitting there lying. I don't know. I had a mixed reaction to it, and I know a lot of people are showing this particular interview. And understandably, Trump just I don't know. I'm just at the point, I don't think he can do any better, y'all. I think this really truly is the best he can do. I think this is as good as it gets as far as Donald Trump is concerned. But I'm going to show you a lot of what happened, the back and forth tussling between him and the interviewer, and we'll just see what you think. But he is being attacked over a lot of things that he said in this interview. And I've seen it on several different people's channel. And I guess for me, it's all the same. So let me go ahead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and then we will get started. Okay. Let's see here. And sorry about the background noise. The neighbor across the street, they're getting a tree cut down. So I hope it's kind of loud, but I hope it's not picked up too much on this live stream. Okay, hold on one second. I want to make sure I get the right one. I think it's this one. Okay, please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Okay. All right, let's check this out. Okay, I'm going to go full screen on this one.
Donald Trump is about to take questions at the National Association of Black Journalists convention. He has just made it to the stage and is now walking over to the podium. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe Black district attorneys. You've attacked Black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking Black supporters to vote for you, why should Black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the Black population of this country. I've done so much for the Black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for Black workers and Black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically Black colleges and universities were out of money, they were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something
Mr.
was
President,
wrong.
I would love
I think
if you
it's
can
a
answer the
very
question on
nasty
your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I have
believe that
answered the
Black voters
question.
will trust you with another
I have
4
been
years.
the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition of
DEI.
that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me if you
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always identified as a Black woman.
I
She went to a
respect
historically
either
Black
one.
college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe
I
that
think
she is
somebody should look into that too when you ask, continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some
I
Republicans
really
have
don't
said?
know. I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there, Harris, is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length. And we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that.
Well, you told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're here today. I mean, it is not lost on us how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we are divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And there is this question of, in this moment where we are, why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are Black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking Black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a Black job, sir?
A Black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr. President,
they're taking the employment away from Black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the Black population, is affected most by that, and Kamala is allowing it to happen. She's the border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border czar like this. She's never even essentially been. She said she was there once, but not the right part of the border. So she was a border czar. She's done a horrible job. These people are coming into our country, and they're taking Black jobs and Hispanic jobs, and frankly, they're taking union jobs. Unions are being very badly affected by all of the millions of people that are pouring into our country. And one thing, as we discussed, many of these people are coming in from mental institutions, from prisons, from jails. They're gang members in other countries. Other countries are setting loose their prisoners. They're opening up their prisons and their mental institutions, and they're taking their bad people, drug dealers, gang members, and they're bringing them into the United States. And by the way, their crime rate is going down, and our crime rate is going to be a disaster.
Mr. President, I want to get into how you address some of the issues with Black communities. And I say that plural because we live in communities of color that are different. We're not all the same. We don't vote the same. We don't think the same. It's not monolithic. So as you come here today, I want to talk about something that bursts. And this is the weight of the inflation on this country right now. The nonprofit Money Management International recently released data from its mid-year analysis that we have found a 52% rise in people who are seeking counseling for being in credit debt. They're paying for food that is sky high on their credit cards, and now they can't pay that off. The credit counseling nonprofit MMI, as I said, is saying now that they've seen surges that they haven't seen since we were in a pandemic of people in financial trouble. Much of that falls on the shoulders of single moms, single Black moms, when you look statistically. Yeah. How do you turn it around? What's your plan for the Black community when it comes to money?
So, first of all, it's very hard to hear you for whatever reason because of the fact that they have bad equipment, because I guess, you know, this woman was unable to get the right equipment. But it's very hard for me to hear you, but I can hear every other word. It's very difficult, actually. But so I don't know if they can fix it or do something with it, but I'll do the best I can with it. The inflation is absolutely destroying our middle class, our working class, virtually every class. Inflation is a disaster in our country. Inflation is a country buster. It breaks every country. And we had, in my opinion, the worst inflation we've had. They say it's 58 years, but I think it's much more than that. It's been devastating. And if you just take a look at a lot of things they don't include, like interest rates. Interest rates went from 2.4% to 10%, and you can't get the money. People can't buy houses. They no longer have the American dream. Young people, young Black people, they don't have the American dream anymore. They can't buy a house. They can't borrow the money because of the cost of the money. They can't buy because of the cost of housing, because of the cost to build it, because of inflation. Inflation is a disaster, and it's destroying our country. And it's destroying the Black community probably as much or more than any.
What's your plan?
You know what we have to do? We have to bring down the cost of energy, and that's going to bring down the cost of inflation. This was all started with a bad energy policy by Joe Biden. By the way, just if I might, I was running against a man named Biden. You probably saw that. And he was losing very badly in the polls. And then he had a rather bad debate. I would say it was a bad debate. I would say it was one of the worst debates in history, and his poll numbers crashed. And instead of saying, you know, let's keep going and maybe something happens the other way, they said, oh, we're going to replace him. Let's just replace him. That's like you're in a fight, a prize fighter's in a fight. He's not doing what you say, let's bring in another fighter. So our whole campaign was steered toward him, and now we have to steer toward him. But ultimately, it's the same because they have bad policy. They have policies of open borders, unbelievable open borders, horrible energy policies. They want to get rid of, as you say, gasoline in cars. They want to get rid of oil. They want to get rid of efficient heating. Environmentally, what they're doing is killing our country. They're absolutely destroying our country. But the inflation is the thing that's hurting the Black worker, the Black population, and every other population within our country. Inflation is the worst it's been, I think, in over 100 years. And they'll fact check it. They'll say it's only 58. Whatever it may be, they don't add all the numbers. They don't add the really bad numbers, and you can check that too. But inflation, Harris, is absolutely destroying this country and the people in our country. Yes,
Mr. President, can I ask you another question
Yes,
that is also impacting Black Americans?
And that's very clear now. Good.
I'm sorry?
It's very clear. I hear you.
Okay. So Sonia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed Black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff. The deputy has since been charged with murder. You said police would get immunity from prosecution if you win. Why should someone like that officer have immunity, in your opinion?
Immunity?
Immunity.
I don't know the exact case, but I saw something, and it didn't look good to me. It didn't look good to me. Are you talking with the water, right?
Yeah, well, police unions are not backing this person either.
Okay, yeah.
But again, why would...
They're going to be charging the officer. I guess they're charging the officer.
So why should he receive immunity?
Well, he might not. I mean, it depends. It depends on what happens. I'm talking about people that are much different cases than that. We need people to protect ourselves. And by the way, in Chicago, as an example, a few weeks ago, July 4th weekend, they had 117 shootings and 17 deaths. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. We need to have our police officers have the respect and dignity back. In this particular case, I saw something that didn't look good to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
So can you get a little more specific back to the immunity question? Who would make those
Well, right now,
distinctions?
for the most part, people are protected by their unions, by their police unions, or by their police departments. But I'm saying if I felt, or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime, or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and making an innocent mistake. But if somebody made an innocent mistake, I would want to help that person.
What would those exceptions be? What would determine
You go
an innocent
after
mistake?
somebody and it's a very close call and it's very dangerous. And they have, the policeman's life and woman is a very difficult thing because sometimes you have less than a second to make a life and death decision, and sometimes very bad decisions are made. They're not made from an evil standpoint, but they're made from the standpoint of they made a mistake.
So I want to follow up really quickly. I find it interesting because you do talk about reining in prosecutors, especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism apply to law enforcement?
Well, I've been prosecuted because I'm a political opponent of two people that have weaponized our justice system. I've been prosecuted. I just won the big case in Florida. Everyone said that was the biggest case. That was the most difficult case. And I just won it. Now, Biden has a similar case, except much worse. I was protected under the Presidential Records Act. Biden wasn't, because he wasn't president at the time. And he had 50 years worth of documents. And they ruled that he was incompetent and therefore he shouldn't stand trial. And I said, isn't that something? He's incompetent and he can't stand trial, and yet he can be president. Isn't that nice?
Mr. President,
but they released him on the basis that he was incompetent. They said he had no memory and he was a nice old guy, but he had no memory, and therefore we're not going to prosecute him. I won the case, and it got very little publicity. I didn't notice ABC doing any publicity on it, George.
We cover you extensively, sir. I'd love to move over on to
I didn't
different
notice
topics
you
now.
do any publicity on it at all. I won the case, the biggest case. This is an attack on a political opponent. I have another one where I
Sir,
have
if you
a
don't mind, I'd
hostile
love
judge.
to. We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different
No,
topics.
excuse
if
you.
we
You're the
can.
one that held me up for 35 minutes, just so you understand.
If we can move on now to the state of the race, sir, I want to get back to the campaign. Senator J.D. Vance is your running mate. He's had a lot of controversy lately, and I want to read you a few things that he has said in the past. He said the Democrats running the country are a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. He's not talking here about how great it is to be a parent. He's attacking what he says are the choices people are making to not have children. Did you know that he had these views about people who do not have children before you picked him to be your running mate? And do you agree with him?
No, I know this. He is very family oriented, and he thinks family is a great thing. That doesn't mean he thinks that if you don't have a family, it's not. I know people with families. I know people with great families. I know people with very troubled families. And I also know people with no families. They didn't meet the right person. Things happen. You go through life, you don't meet the right person.
But he's not just talking about families here.
And
He also
some of
says that
those
people that don't have children should get less votes than
That's
those
all right.
that do.
I'm just speaking for myself.
that your
and I
campaign
think
position?
I'm speaking for him too. He strongly believes in family, but I know people with great families. I know people with not great families that don't have a family. And the people without the family are far better. They're superior in many cases, okay? He's not saying they're not. What he's saying is that he thinks the family experience is a very important thing. It's a very good thing. But that doesn't mean that if you grow up and you grow older and you don't meet somebody that would be wonderful to meet and would have been good, that that's a bad thing. He's not saying that. My interpretation, you'll have to ask him actually, but my interpretation is he's strongly family oriented. but that doesn't mean.
All right, we have been listening to former President Donald Trump speaking with the National Association of Black Journalists, several different prominent Black journalists. Rachel Scott of ABC News, you see there, she started things off by talking about the controversy surrounding his appearance and specifically some remarks that the former president previously made and falsehoods that he made, ending with the question, why should Black voters trust you? That questioning really seemed to rub the former president the wrong way. He called it a rude introduction. He said he was invited under false pretenses, and actually came after Rachel for problems with the equipment that made everything run late. He called her hostile and a disgrace. He also made some comments about the vice president, Kamala Harris, who he is running against in this general election, and some comments that were certainly met with some boos and in some cases some surprise from the Black journalists in attendance, saying that Kamala Harris, who is both of Asian and Black descent, became a Black person, in his words, and that someone should look into it. He claims that she had previously identified as an Indian American. Obviously, there are many Americans who have multiple heritages and identities. We also heard from Harris Faulkner of Fox News, who asked questions trying to get things maybe into a more substantive policy discussion about inflation and his message for the assembled team. In that case, that also elicited some negative responses from the audience. He said he wanted to stop people from invading our country and taking Black jobs, to which Scott asked specifically, what are Black jobs? The former president saying any jobs. We're going to continue to listen to all of this. We will bring you any headlines. We're going
to Okay.
$10 months, 4 bidding wars, 3 weeks to iron out the details. It wasn't easy finding our joust.
Jean House.
But after a few minor alterations, it's the perfect fit.
Thankfully, choosing NJM for home insurance was easy. They tailored.
With NJM, you get the coverage that's right for you and top-rated customer service.
Oh, careful. Don't spill on the Jable.
For change. Just great insurance. NJM.
I live for you, honey. This is insane.
Let's go.
And win
Okay, here we go with that. All right, y'all. That's really where it cuts off. Donald Trump really don't do well in front of a Black crowd. I have to conclude that because of the things that he says. You know, every time he gets in front of a Black crowd, he always wants you to know he's done more than any other president in the history of this country. I mean, how many times have we heard this? Way too many times. All right. And I don't see what he did that was so astronomical that the Black community, we benefited from it in a huge way. Never forget George Floyd happened under Donald Trump. All right. Number two, and I'm getting tired of hearing that. You know, it's one thing if you say you've done more and we got something to show for it. He keeps saying it and we have nothing to show for it. What do we have to show for that? Nothing. We just keep hearing the same tired ass lines over and over. Number two, all this BS about we can relate to him because of his criminal record. That's a load of BS too. Okay, so we can only relate to Donald Trump on negative stuff. Is that what y'all trying to say? So anything negative and degraded, that's what we can relate to Donald Trump on. Okay, so there's nothing positive that we got in common with Donald Trump. Just negative stuff. Indictments, crime. So that's all we're about. Well, the vast majority of Black America never been to jail. The vast majority of Black America never committed a crime. And those that do commit crimes, it just seems big because y'all over sensationalize everything on the news. That's why it seems bigger than what it really is. All y'all do is over sensationalize negative things about the Black community. So it always seems astronomical when actually it's not astronomical at all. It is no more bigger than any other community in this country. In fact, the people that do all the jaw jacking on the news, y'all are way bigger criminals than the Black community. Your history says it, past and present. Your history says it. Got some damn nerve. So anyway, y'all, Donald Trump don't do well around Black people. He doesn't. And I don't think it helps that his own nephew came out. And, Fred Trump the third is Mary Trump's brother. And they both said the same thing. Donald Trump uses the N word all the time. And you know what? I believe that. I believe that. I believe that about Joe Biden, too. I believe they both do. I think these old ass men, these old ass overprivileged men do those sorts of things all the time. And, no matter, it just goes to show you, no matter how much privilege many of them have, they're still miserable. You notice that? All these privileges all throughout your life. And at the end of the day, you're still miserable. That's how I see Donald Trump. And as far as him doing so much for the Black community, Donald Trump only wants to be president so he can have immunity from the damn law. Donald Trump don't give a shit about anybody but Donald Trump. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. He is looking to be Teflon John for the next 4 years in the White House. Who the hell has 34 indictments? I never even met one single Black man with 34 damn indictments. So y'all can miss us with this. We relate to him over his criminal background. We don't relate to that shit, because if you do meet a Black man or Black woman that got a criminal record, they may have 1 or 2 things, maybe even 4 or 5, but you can best believe they don't have no damn 34. Okay, you ain't gonna meet now one that got 34 indictments. None. But yeah, the questions, in my opinion, y'all can talk about these women all you want, but all they did was quote him in those questions. These are things that came out of Donald Trump's mouth. So if you don't like the women and what they said, you can thank Donald Trump for providing the ammunition for all of those questions. That's what you can do. So we shall see. Right now, that was not a good interview for Donald Trump. It was not a good interview for him at all. I saw the whole thing from start to finish, and he pretty much bombed out on this one. For real. Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of us haven't. Most of us have never been in trouble with the law. But what they do is they spend, look, white people own the media. So they can demonize the Black community all they want. They own it. If we owned the media, we could do the same thing to them. We could do the same exact thing to them. It's not about who is horrible. It's about who owns it and who can get on there, sensationalize, lie, demonize, and always trying to grandstand or make sure your crimes are not announced all over the news, but keep announcing ours. I mean, we know your bag of tricks. We've been new. We've been new. Y'all commit a lot of crimes. Them folks commit a lot of crimes, y'all. A lot. And a lot of it is published, but they just don't put it on their mainstream news. But if you literally start looking at the crimes, you're going to see them come up a lot. You're going to see them come up way more than Black men and women. You will. You'll see them come up way more. So, y'all, that's all I have for today on this topic. And all I can say to the Republicans, y'all got to do a lot better. Because if this is the way it's going to be leading up to the election, all those Black people potentially that are going to vote for you are going to start dropping off. They are. They're going to start dropping off because, number one, you're not offering nothing. And number two, all we see is just a bunch of big time racists that think the Black community should vote alongside with them. That's all I see. It's not like you're trying to do anything differently. It's not like you're trying to say, you know what, the Democrats did not offer the Black community a thing. Let's see if we could do better and offer something. Y'all ain't even attempting to do it. I don't have no respect for you either. F the Democratic Party and F you Republicans as far as I'm concerned. F all of you. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you for being here. And we'll do this again on another topic. Shalom, family.